which makes things kind of demoralizing when you work all week and then you sell like $300 worth of stuff. Hi, I'm Zach. I've been a software developer for the last 12 years. I've also been running a marketing and development agency for the past 7, where we've been able to generate over $13 million in revenue for our clients. Today, I'm going to be talking about types of businesses that I would probably avoid. Businesses with tremendous capital expenditures if you are inexperienced. For example, let's say you wanted to open a store that sold clothing at the mall, which is pretty normal or standard, right? And if you are in any sort of high traffic area, this mall is probably pretty expensive to rent from. The bigger issue is not necessarily the price, it's the terms. Typically, these leases are for multiple years and not even 1 to 2. They could be even up to 4 or 5 years. The larger the space, I believe, is usually how it becomes longer. Like a Walmart location, it might be something like 10 years or 30 years, something very long, but we're not talking about like that size, but even just something small like for a clothing shop. Now, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't like a business that on day one, I have to now make $200,000 to make $0. That's just not very attractive unless you really know what you're doing and you have a great reason for why you need a physical location in such a premium area. And it kind of makes sense because if there's enough foot traffic, then maybe you're going to make enough sales just based on the location. But if you're not aware of that, then it's kind of crazy to get into that. And you might think, well, people who aren't aware of that are probably not going to do that. I don't think so, because in reality, we typically only hear about the successful business stories. Who is going to make this tremendous mistake and then fail and end up closing their store and then go and tell everybody about it? Probably no one, right? Not very many people are going to go brag about their failure. In the US especially, we're now regularly seeing empty locations, empty stores, and a lot of those were once rented out, which means those people weren't able to meet those obligations. And then the next domino that would be the result of this failure is that if it's a new business, it doesn't have its own credit, so it probably didn't qualify for that lease agreement without having to personally guarantee the lease term. And so now it's going to end up affecting you personally and your personal finances, which is a very scary situation to be in. Once again, if you know what you're doing, sure, but I don't feel comfortable doing that anytime soon. I don't want to deal with physical locations, because for my specific situation, I'm able to use higher leverage skills like marketing or software engineering and then reach a certain scale that way, as opposed to needing to hit a certain amount of walk-in store visits in order to meet my goals. Businesses that are trending at the moment. It's not really because so many people are hopping on the trend, because that, I believe, is actually going to help you. The problem is that is not a good long-term reason to get into a business. Unless you have experience with business and you are going to be opportunistic about taking that chance, then it makes sense and you know what you're doing. You're riding the wave, but you're not overly attached to it. Like Airbnb rentals. There's nothing wrong with them inherently, but so many people got caught up in the hype following that trend because they saw all these other people making money, but maybe that person was very well researched and really knew what they were doing, enough so that they could then take the spare time and then market it. Or maybe those people did not know what they were doing and they were just trying to now make a second revenue stream by marketing it. It's hard to tell sometimes. You never really know all the ins and outs of a business until you actually start digging deep into it. The problem is that people get excited because they see the large dollar amounts and then they end up losing their shirt by over leveraging themselves, especially like when the interest rates finally increased and then suddenly nobody could afford keeping any of those properties to rent them out. Businesses that are very low ticket, I would probably not start with, because you're still figuring everything out. And then once you finally do make a sale, like once you finally have your sales system down, it's going to take you forever just to even recoup your initial investment, which makes things kind of demoralizing when you work all week and then you sell like $300 worth of stuff. You know, it's not really worth it. The reason why people end up kind of falling for these things or jumping into like low ticket items is more because they view them as easy, like maybe selling food or serving coffee. Yeah, it's easy. There's a low barrier to entry, but there's a reason why, and it's always going to pay less because there's the low barrier to entry. Like everybody always wants food, but nobody is going to pay much more than minimum wage for food preparation unless you're some chef, like a high tier chef or something. It just makes it kind of unattractive for a good business model. So I'm kind of trashing these models, and I try to give kind of the caveats for like when maybe you could approach them. Most of it has to do with experience, or maybe if you have enough resources. I would argue that if you don't have the experience, even if you have a good amount of resources, it still doesn't make sense because you're going to just be spending a ton of money to learn on the job. But if you are willing to invest time into a certain type of business, then you should probably go work for somebody else before you try and start your own in that specific category. Like if you did want to run a clothing shop and sell your own clothing, you should probably go work at a clothing shop. If you want to sell low ticket items, you should probably go specialize at that specific type of item so that you can then also network, learn sort of just what is supposed to be done on a regular basis so that you're not missing all of these gaps. What type of business would I probably start with if I could start over again? I didn't make these particular mistakes, though I did see people who did make them. People that I knew personally would go into these, and then many people go into these and sort of trend hop, sell things for too little, and then wonder why they never make any money, or why they have to struggle so much to make a little bit of money. And so it's kind of led me to high ticket services for starting out. It actually makes a lot of sense. That sounds easier said than done. I know that. But what would be something that would have a lower barrier to entry that is still relatively high ticket? Well, it could be sort of like manual labor type tasks. Like you might have seen some trends of like window washing, people going around and knocking on doors and asking people if they would like their windows to be washed, and they might end up making $700, $800 a day. It is not easy work by any means, so this might be more for the guys, like more physical labor. It would probably be something like that, like if I had to just start from zero and I didn't have already a higher leverage skill like coding or marketing or something. If I was starting with that, and then I would try to get it sorted out, make some money first, save up, and then also try to add on a higher leverage skill, like maybe pick up some marketing, because I know not everyone is interested in coding, but everyone has to learn some form of marketing. I would recommend copywriting, at least just figuring out some basic copywriting skills and some copywriting formulas like problem, agitate, solution, which just means like to state their problem, emphasize the bad of it and why they will dislike it, and then present your solution to the problem. Just simple structures like that can really improve your writing a lot. A lot of people, they'll get caught up in trying to just make their writing sound pretty, which it might look nice and it might have gotten you a good grade in high school, but it's not going to get the person to click on the ad and actually order from you or call you or whatever. So that is a high leverage skill that is going to maybe multiply your business, or perhaps you could use it on another person's business, and it does not require a special technical knowledge. It just requires some patience and research. I wouldn't classify myself as a copywriter, but for example, they refer to it as voice of customer research. So you might look at, let's say, 500 reviews from customers of a certain product, and then you will use the words that they use when they describe the product. And then if you use those words in your copy, it is going to resonate so much more with them, because it's like you're reading their mind when you state the problem. So it just helps you to make them feel understood so much more. And if they feel like you really understand their problem and you have the solution, they're going to feel the safest just going ahead with you. That is usually the biggest thing that people complain about, right? In their business, is not being able to make enough sales. But if your conversion rate was really high on your ads, it's going to be a lot harder to not come across leads and then sell those leads. And it is absolutely possible to do almost all of your selling through the writing itself. High ticket service as soon as you can. Whatever type that you can figure out that will work for you. If you have the time to learn a high ticket skill like copywriting or coding or whatever, then that's even higher leverage, because then you can spread it with essentially zero cost. Yeah, I guess the underlying principle is just you're trying to find higher leverage without too much waste, because once you do have enough resources and experience on how to actually get things going, then these other businesses are definitely possible. It just, because they seem simpler up front, people tend to go for them as the safe choice for some reason. Like, I've even had family members or friends that say they want to start these kinds of businesses, and then when they see the full picture, they realize why it's not all it's cracked up to be. It's not that easy. Every business has its flaws, its problems, and it's fine if you are aware of them, but you just really don't want to go into one that you don't know what the problems are. You're gonna have a hard enough time even when you know what the problems are, but don't go in without knowing what the problems are. That just is gonna make it way, way harder. So yeah, that's my rant for the day on types of business and why some of them are difficult. But please let me know if you have any recommendations for videos or topics that you'd like to learn more about. That's all for today. Thank you.